was in 2011. My sort of life started to derail. I'd gone from drinking white wine every night to drinking vodka every night, and I was, was getting divorced. I had a lot of things going on, and I got to a place where I felt like, I was going to have to check myself into treatment. Sad, and I felt so disconnected from myself and so disconnected from the people that I loved, and I didn't know how to stop. I just didn't know what to do. So I went to treatment.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Finding New Waters. My name is B. Reeves. I'm the Director of Business Development here at New Waters Recovery in Raleigh, North Carolina, sitting here with our CEO, Justin McClendon, and our special guest today, very special guest, Cini Shaw from the Lighthouse up in New Canaan, Connecticut. Welcome, Cini.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
So, Cini, I've gotten to meet you a few times, and I've been to the Lighthouse. Y'all had an amazing event that I was lucky enough to be invited to, and had dinner with you and your staff and your leadership team and lots of your clients. And we had a speaker meeting, and it was just lovely. So, just first of all, tell us what the Lighthouse is.
All right. So the Lighthouse, sort of the manifestation of a vision of Trey Laird's, who is our CEO. He had gone to treatment, and after his aftercare coordinators were, you need to go to sober living and or recovery residence, as we call our homes. And so he wanted to go to one in New Canaan or in sort of Fairfield County, and there wasn't anything here. There were options in Florida and in California, but his family was here, and he worked in New York City. So he ended up sort of moving to an apartment and, sort of developing his community through the 12-step program. But in the back of his head, this sort of vision was growing that this was a need here in this area of Connecticut, that we have sober living or recovery residence for individuals who were sort of like Trey, who were executives, who had, you know, had to go to treatment and or had to find a way to recovery, who were not ready yet to transition home. So he sort of created this, and we have grown since then. That was the original Lighthouse. So now we have a men's house in New Canaan, Connecticut, a beautiful home there on 6+ acres. And we also have a women's house, which we opened 5 years ago in New Canaan, Connecticut. And that's another home with a beautiful home. And we serve individuals who are at a place where they need to bridge. They need to practice the recovery tools, perhaps, that they learned in treatment, and also see if they can bring those tools safely back home. So we are a lovely place to transition. And then we have grown since then. We have a full recovery coaching program so that every resident of ours has a recovery coach. And our hope is, we call it Recovery 365. Our hope is you may live with us, and then you take your coach with you for the year when you transition home again. We've also opened apartments here in New Canaan because we had so many individuals who were wanting to come back here because they found such a robust recovery community here. And they loved being here. They loved being part of the Lighthouse. So we've opened apartments as well. And then another service that we've developed in the last year and a half is a very robust family coaching program, because we know that it's such an important piece. Families are the glue, oftentimes, of, the keeping, they're the glue, the individual spouse, the parents sometimes are the ones home keeping things together, so that an individual who has gone to treatment or is at one of our residences can come home, and they need support as well. So we've created robust services here, and we are also, just always looking to see what else the individuals who come to us need. We are always sort of creating new support groups. We have, the ability to create intensives for individuals because we have an incredible clinical community around us. Though we don't offer clinical services at the Lighthouse, we have an incredible group of psychiatrists and therapists in this area. So if there's someone who needs a special trauma work or, IFS work or something specialized, we can create an intensive for that individual while they're with us.
This is quite a thorough answer. Thank you.
Yeah, that's impressive. Uh, so I'm wondering, it sounds like a pretty robust program. If someone needed to continue to work and things like that, can they also do that there, or is there too much of a full schedule for that?
Yes, no. So, we are, there are some recovery residences where you have to earn privileges, and earn the ability, to go out or to use your car or to go back to work or all of those things. Our assumption when you come to us is that you're willing to engage in a recovery program and that you are, at a point in your recovery where you are stable. So we encourage everyone to get back to their lives. So we have folks who come into us who are like, I know this is a great next step for me, but I've got a business trip in London in 2 weeks. And that's very important because, I run this business and I must be there. So we'll build the program around that individual. So if they need a companion, we'll send a companion. If they need monitoring, we'll up the monitoring. We will build sort of the guardrails, if you will, around that individual to create safety. So
We
people
Right.
can work. At our women's houses, it's been a big thing because a lot of women say, I can't, I've just gone to treatment. I can't be away from my family any longer. And we have, created a situation where they can sort of be with us in the morning and in the evening, spend the night, but they can go and be with their families. They can get their children on the school bus in the morning. They can go to that lacrosse game. And then they can come back and talk about what went well, what didn't go well, how can we further support them? So, yes, that is something that, we encourage everyone to do. We are the place that people launch from.
That's great.
love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I mean, just we have a track with it within New Waters, our executive, also known as concierge track, where it's sort of typically for somebody who says, "I want help, I need help, but there is just no way I can totally be away from, running my business for so
Yeah.
long." And so it's nice to be nimble and flexible, which some places just can't be or won't be. And, I
Right.
respect that too, but we need other options sometimes.
Yeah.
So
And, I'd say, B, we have a pretty concierge approach. So if someone comes in and there are all these things that they sort of need to do, and they're important to them. And I think the thing that we have to remember is that staying sober is not the only part of recovery. Right. Getting back to work, getting back to your family, getting back to the things that draw you up in your wellness. That's very, very important for folks. So we want to enable them to do that. So we will build it for them. If someone needs a companion part of the day so they can get out in the community and do the things they need to do, we'll add that in. We're very excited to help people get back to their lives. That's why we're here, really. And we're all in recovery at the Lighthouse. I'm in recovery. I wish I had something like this when I got out of treatment. So yeah.
Well, Cindy, can you tell us maybe a little bit about that? If you're open to it, how did you get involved in this?
How did I get involved in this work? Yeah. So, um, I'd always worked in social services and, um, let's see, it was in 2011, my sort of life started to derail. It was, I'd gone from drinking white wine every night to drinking vodka every night, and I was, very depressed. Was getting divorced. I had a lot of things going on, and I got to a place where I felt like, I was going to have to check myself into treatment because um, I I was I was so sad, and I felt so disconnected from myself and so disconnected from the people that I loved, and I didn't know how to stop. I just didn't know what to do. So, I went to treatment, and, I actually went to detox, and so I was a rock star in detox, and it was like, "Yeah, I got this," and got out of detox, and then, my sister one of my sisters is a cancer survivor, and I did the Avon Walk for the Cure with her, walked 39 miles, and I was like, "Oh gosh, this is it. I got it. Like, I'm fixed," and, then within 5 days, I was drinking warm vodka again by myself, and, I didn't know what to do, and I've shared this with B, I think, when I met him. The first time I met him, I had been sort of flirting, if you will, or auditing AA meetings, and there was a noon meeting in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I walked into that meeting, um, tears streaming down my face because I didn't know what else to go or where else to go. I couldn't tell my family, that I'd had a return to use. I didn't have the money to go back to detox. And I stood in the doorway there, tears streaming down my face, and there was a woman there who just patted the chair next to her. And I cry every time I talk about this. And so I just came in and I sat down, and she just looked at me and said, "It's going to be okay." And I just sobbed the whole meeting, and then afterwards, she asked me she didn't give me her phone number, she wasn't pushy, she was very gentle, which was the approach that I needed, and she just said, "I'm gonna be here tomorrow. Do you think you can come back?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, I'll be here." And that was it, and I came back, and then I came back again, and then I came back again. And, that was the beginning for me, and then I sort of switched over, as I, grew my wellness and my interest in recovery, and I started seeing folks just like me, women just like me who lived in beautiful homes and had beautiful families and, you know, felt like that was their identity, but they felt very lost inside and didn't know, um, hadn't, weren't connected to their selves. I started exploring ways that I could help other women. And so I became a recovery coach, and then I went back to school and got a master's in clinical mental health counseling. And so, it's like I feel like, I have a purpose and this is my passion. I'm very committed to um, helping people find a way to engage in any kind of recovery and helping them remove barriers so that they can engage. Not just 12 step, but anything because in my work and in my lived experience, that's what we need to do. If we're really going to meet people where they're at in their recovery, we have to remove those barriers. We can't say, well, you must do this or you must do that. We have to find ways to connect so people feel safe enough to consider giving up something that has been their coping skill for so, so many years. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that story, and it
It's a
almost
beautiful story.
started crying again because when you told it to me in Connecticut, I did get a little tear because it's so beautiful. The other night, what was it last? No, Wednesday night, I was sitting in a meeting and I thought about you without realizing, but some guy was kind of walking and looked a little lost, and I just sort of patted the seat next to me, and I was it was a sort of subconscious
Yeah.
homage to your story, I think.
Oh,
But but you're such a great point about somebody not being pushy. We see that a lot in recovery, and I mean, and in treatment, and
Yeah.
there's a balance between kind of not enabling and kind of giving people some boundaries and some guardrails, like you said. But if people had been really pushy with me, because I mean, I just feel like in general, most people don't like to be told what to do, but especially
right.
alcoholics and addicts. especially when, we're raw too. And,
Mhm.
but I had that same kind of just welcoming thing. And if somebody had come up and just started wagging a finger at me and telling me what to do, I just don't think I would have reacted the way I did to it.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned, you seeing women who were just like you, who were struggling, and it's sort of more of a silent thing. What do you, from your perspective, why do you think it is a little bit different for women to ask for help?
Well, I think there's still a huge amount of stigma. A guy can go out and, tie one on, right? Lose his car, wake up in bed with someone he doesn't know. And most likely his friends are not going to go, "What happened? What did you do?" Right? For a woman to do that is still something that, culturally, we see as shameful. And I think also we hold shame. Women are expected today to have a family, right? And do it beautifully, right? Keep a home like Martha Stewart, hold down a job, it's a lot. Uh, and and they are the glue of the families. And it's very, very difficult, for the family to let go of that person, right? And say, you need to go get help, because if she leaves, who's going to make sure that, they're at soccer practice and lacrosse practice, and who's bringing cookies to school, and who's doing all of these things? And these are just, the sort of adjacent things women do. That's not the heart of what women bring to a home. So I do think that, it is much harder for women to do this. I think there's more stigma and there is more pressure on them to show up in ways that we have to be sort of perfect, you know? And of course that's an impossible ideal. None of us are perfect, and that's impossible. But for us to ask for help when we are supposed to be the one providing help and showing up for all your family members, it's a really hard thing. We're not taught to do that. We're not.
I think that's a great point, and so I'm sitting here thinking as you're saying that, I mean, as we know, right, addiction, touches all individuals, all walks of life. But thinking about that as you're saying it, like, I can definitely imagine. I mean, I think generally speaking, like, that striving for perfection can produce a lot of anxiety, shame, guilt
Yeah.
for all people. But you're
Yeah.
exactly right. I think you're exactly right about that. I think society has really put, women in this place to where there is the expectations are, you know, unreachable,
Right.
and just way too high. And I can only imagine what that's gonna feel like. I mean, to just know that, like, you've gotta be perfect and you're gonna do everything you can, but there's really just no way that you can do it. I mean,
No
that's
way.
gotta be tough.
And it used to be that, I mean, 100 years ago, or maybe a little less, that we raised our family in community. You had your grandmother there, you had your aunt there. Everyone was pitching in, working to grow this family. And today we become much more isolated. And women are on their own, at home doing this. I mean, not only single mothers, but even within the family unit. There's much more, I think, expected of the women. I think, men have come a long way in terms of, picking up, responsibility in the home. And so I'm not meaning to, to put down any gentlemen out there, but I do still think it mostly falls on, the women in the home. And it is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah,
And that
I want
ideal of perfectionism is just unattainable. And
Unattainable.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
And I
dangerous.
think also, there is this culture still out there too of, you work so hard, there's that mommy wine culture, which is
Mhm.
really tough because, okay, you've done all this, come on over, right? Let's have a glass of wine. I fell into that. I was, totally into that. And so it sort of divided my day from my night. It was my reward. It was the way I unwound and relaxed. And, for me, it became, it went from, just sort of casually at night to becoming something I must have. every evening, completely sort of consuming my life.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about it actually in terms of the single mother, which is a whole separate
Yeah.
higher level of this, but also just the sort of, we talk about taking hostages, being we have girlfriends or boyfriends or husbands or wives or partners or whatever before we get better, before we get sober. And that we're jokingly sort of refer to them as hostages. But then this is another example of that is because we see this, where the husband is knows the wife really needs help, but is so afraid
Yeah.
of what's going to happen. That glue, back to the glue
Right.
of what we were talking about earlier, and it's almost harder for them
Yeah.
sometimes to. I mean, the woman I felt like. I mean, I'm generalizing, so forgive me, but they're like, you have done this, you have done that, you got to get out of here, go get help. Your job will be okay or not. We'll figure it out. But the guys they get petrified because they don't know how they're going to possibly run the house for,
Right.
30 whole days, or in your case, for months at a time. But then you provide that service where they are able to go be
Absolutely.
dad during the day, take the kids to the bus, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. And I think, that's we really um we really try to listen so well to our folks in our community, and we listening for like what is part of what draws them up, what makes them tick, right, what lights them up, and we want to double down on all that stuff. So if it's family, we don't want to be taking your family away from you. We want to be helping you take the steps to re-engage with your family. If it's work, same thing. We don't want to be taking that away from you. We want to help you find a way to do this, and bring it back into your life in a way um, that it does draw you up, and at the same time help you find safer, more healthy ways to cope with the things that are uncomfortable for you.
Yeah. The Fairfield County bit, I mean, what percentage of clients at the Lighthouse are actually living or who are living with you are commuting to the city? Is it that, or is it kind of people who are taking a break from that and kind of working virtually and maybe going to go back to that?
Yeah, so we certainly have folks that commute into the city. I don't have a number for you, but I would say everybody who is employed and is ready to get back to work is getting back into it. And if they're not employed and they're looking to explore that, that's another element of coaching that we try and bring in as well. Some career coaching. So because sometimes people have been at a job that they hate, for 16 years or something like that. And that's one of the reasons that they've been, using a substance in an unhealthy way, is because they hate what they do all day long. So if you spend 8 hours a day doing something you can't stand, right, you're going to probably look for a way to cope with that. And so, helping people, shift direction. We have coaches, as a matter of fact, that work for us, that we're investment bankers and that we're attorneys who, are no longer doing that anymore, but this is what they love to do, is coaching. So, they've found a way to this. And so we are encouraging that always to help people, explore that. What lights you up in a positive way? And how can we help you get to that place? And that's really what coaching is about, is helping people grow their recovery capital, their internal and external resources to maintain their wellness. And so, we're looking at, all elements of that recovery capital, and we want to help people grow that. And so we're, if the long-term goal is to switch careers, then we're coming back to here now. Okay, what do you need to do now? Like, what are the baby steps to get there? That's what we're trying to help people do.
For
And
our
always
audience who
celebrating successes.
love it. Well, for our audience who don't they don't know what a recovery coach does. What we tell them what a recovery coach does.
Great question.
Yeah. So a recovery coach is different than a sponsor and different than a therapist. A sponsor is someone who specifically takes you through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And a therapist is a person who sort of peels back the onion, if you will, to get to the why Like what the why of the pain, the why of the anxiety. A recovery coach is someone who um, sees you as the greatest resource in your recovery and is not dealing with symptom management, but dealing with being in solution in the moment. So we are boots on the ground. How do you do this today? Right? How do you reintegrate into your home? And, how do you get back to work? How do you go out to dinner and not order a drink when, the server comes over and says, "What would you like to drink?" Right? How do you go on a date, right, and not drink for the first time? So that's what recovery coaches do. These real life, how do you live recovery right now today? Um, and we don't do this just in isolation. We love a team approach, and we love connecting with a person's psychiatrist and their therapist and their family therapist. And we have family coaching here, so all of our anyone receiving Lighthouse services gets a family coach as well. So we love working as a team so that we are all working in concert to help that person have the best chance at maintaining their wellness and reaching their goals.
And you mentioned, so even after someone's left the recovery residences with you guys, they're able to continue with the coaching and have that support while they
Yeah.
reintegrate back to the house. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So because, you formed such an alliance with this person, they're your ally. And so, that support stays with you. And I would mention as well is that I feel we built this lovely continuum of care. We have our houses, we have our apartments, and then we have our coaching services that you can take with you, but you can also hop on the continuum of care just with coaching. We have far more people that we coach outside of our homes because we only have, availability there for 18 folks between the two homes. So, someone can come to us and just do our coaching program and have a recovery coach and a family coach for their loved ones. And we have daily contact with them. We do at least 2 sessions a week with them, helping them to do the same things. The beauty of that too is that because we are in daily contact with these individuals, we can get ahead of anything before it becomes a crisis.
I just thought of something when you're talking about the difference, and thank you for that explanation. It was spot on. And but but when I got sober, I was told all I had to do was change everything.
Right.
But this my sponsor, took me through the steps and is still there and helps me help other people and so many things. And then, I haven't been to therapy in a while, but I had a therapist that I saw once a week for a year, and then, started going a little less frequently, who was helping me peel back the onion and figure out why from a clinical standpoint. But I probably could have benefited from somebody, showing me how to change everything else
Right.
because, you're right. I mean, all those things that you mentioned, plus so many more ad infinitum of all the things that we need to learn how to do sober, going on a date, going to a football game, going to a wedding, going to the airport, all that stuff. I mean, my sponsor would have dropped me like first period physics if I had called him about every little single detail. I mean, but they also say, call me if you have a hangnail, but also at some point, they're probably not doing a great job if they're your relationship counselor and your travel agent and everything else. So, but that is such an important thing. And I think too, when people, especially the clients you serve who are typically older and have got a lot of life experience involving travel and dinners and
Yeah.
stuff that maybe lend itself to more, harm, if that's the right word, or danger of relapse. So I think that the coaching piece is almost an underrated piece of
Mhm.
our field.
Well, and I would
Absolutely. And, all of our coaches, and I should have said this right very at the very first thing is they're all in lived recovery, right? They all bring their superpower, honestly, is that they've been there, done this, got that t-shirt. They do,
Mhm.
so they understand how hard it is. to do this, and they understand what it's like to go out on a date without a drink, right? They understand how difficult this is. The other thing that we do at the Lighthouse, which I think is pretty cool, is that, a lot of places give folks caseloads, and we don't do that. We match people up with a recovery coach. So if we have a young man, who is, in recovery, let's say from an opiate use disorder, we're not going to match him up with a 65-year-old coach who had an alcohol use disorder because they don't have, right, a lot of relatability. We really, really try to match folks up with coaches that they're going to have a lot of relatability with. So, if you're, married and have been divorced and have teenage children, we're looking for a coach who has lived these things as well, so that you feel anyone would feel supported by that person, not only because they're trained in coaching, but because they've had that lived experience. And I would also mention that I think recovery coaching, it's a bit like the Wild West out there still with recovery coaching. We take a lot of pride in the training we give our coaches. They have supervision every single week. We have team meetings every week. We really support and want to grow our coaches. We have some that have been trained in psychedelic assisted recovery. We have others that are trained in other specializations. So we really try to match our folks up. Really, well. And I've been called the Yenta of recovery coaching. So I don't know.
That's great. Another thing I was thinking regarding the coaching piece is the family. You guys mentioned that you do the family coaching as
Yeah.
well. And
Mhm.
I mean, I do think, and we see that we try to connect people, family units to whether it's a therapist or a coach or somebody, because I think a lot of times, I mean, see, I'm sure you see this too, but the families, your loved one is receiving some treatment and some support, but the family sometimes either number one doesn't even identify that they need that, or number two, like they don't while this change process is going on. Like, they just don't have the support, but they don't have somebody in their corner helping to kinda navigate. Maybe they're getting, some education from the treatment center or from the therapist or something like that, but having a coach that's able to work with that family and help them navigate the nuances is
Mm.
such a game changer,
I
such a
was gonna
game
say
changer.
it's been a game changer for us. It really has
That's
been.
great.
Yeah. And our family coaches are trained in the Invitation to Change model, which is born out of CMC Berkshires and the work of Kerry Wilkins and Jeff Foote. And it's just this beautiful model that marries compassion and science. And it is all about that. It's all about helping the family members um, grow their own wellness at the same time, and also giving them a voice to be heard, right? And also giving them space to talk about the things that are really hard, their fear, their sadness, the loss. There's, nobody holds a baby in their arms and says, well, gosh, I hope they grow up and have a substance use disorder, right? For families, this is super hard. And, they do the best they can with the tools that they have. And we, try to help them have some more tools so that they can communicate better, so that they can manage their own feelings better and work through some of that hard stuff. It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
help them understand that this isn't a punishment for them, because sometimes we see this where the
yeah,
family member is, the attitude is, well, my son is the one who wrecked the car and, pawned my jewelry, whatever. Why am I the
Right.
one who has to do any work? That
Yeah.
he's the one who did that. And
Yeah.
what they hopefully find is that, they can find their own recovery without having to, go to the depths of addiction.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of family, there's anger, all of that, and sadness and grief, and I mean, it is, it, you know, the more everyone is healing, the better. There's a lovely story about the healing forest, that I was introduced to through Don Coyas, who developed the Wellbriety movement. He talks about, you have this forest and you have all the trees in the forest getting the same light. They're sharing the same soil, the same nutrients. But one of the trees in the forest gets very, very unwell. So they take the tree out of the forest and they send the tree to tree rehab, and the tree gets pruned and it gets miracle grow and lots of better sunlight and people love on this tree, gets all healthy. And then they take the tree and they send it back to the forest. But the forest has not had any of that care. And the person gets sick right away. And we go, how could that happen? I just spent $60,000 on tree rehab. So this is, we all have to heal. It's so very, very important. Yeah.
I love that analogy, and it's easy to picture it. And,
Yeah.
but I've never heard of Wellbriety. I can sort of do my own, math here and put that together, that portmanteau, and figure out what it actually says, but what is it? What is well-being
So there's
Wellbriety?
sobriety, right? Which is, you got sober, right? Wellbriety is about like what happens after you get sober, right? How are you growing your wellness, your spiritual wellness, your emotional wellness, your community wellness? How are you giving back? How are you, building all of those things out? So it doesn't stop with just getting sober, right? That's the foundation we need. The Wellbriety piece of this is the most incredible piece of this. And, I've been in recovery since 2011, and that's daily work for me. That is growing my Wellbriety, my wellness. And whatever that is, for me, it started 12 step all day. I started out 3 meetings a day. I was just like, I can't be away from one of you because I won't be able to hold it together. And now my wellness and my Wellbriety, if you will, has morphed to I do meetings, I meditate, I do a lot of self-compassion work. I brought in a lot of Eastern philosophy into the work that I do and to my wellness. And so it's changed. And I imagine it will continue to change as I change and I grow. And we encourage that for all of our folks. Nothing is cookie cutter. We really want people to find what draws them up and grow that Wellbriety piece.
I love it. I mean, it kinda goes back to one of the first things you said is there's more to being sober than just being dry or sober. I don't know exactly how
Yeah,
you said it, but you're right. I mean, and, I know I didn't get sober to just sit on my hands and just be afraid of the world.
right. Right. And, I would say, and most of us didn't get sober to sit in a church basement. You know,
That's true
we got
too.
sober to live our best lives, right? So that we can, be out there, having fun. Fun is huge, and Trey, our CEO, talks about this all the time, the importance of, having fun in sobriety, getting reconnected with the things that you used to love to do, finding other things now that you may love to do. It's so very, very important. Yeah.
Well, we're not a glum lot, and, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Trey, your CEO and founder he was an early guest
That's
on the
right.
podcast, so
Yeah.
we thank him for that, for helping us get this thing going, and, this seems like a pretty good place to wrap it up, and we always wanna just ask, how does our audience find you and find the Lighthouse?
Right. So, they can go to our website, which is thelighthousect.com. They can reach me at Cini, it's CINI, at thelighthousect.com. Trey is always open to phone calls. I'm always open to phone calls. We love hearing from people. We love introducing them to our community. And we'd love to, show you around too. If you're ever in this neck of the woods and you want to visit, we'd love to have you come by.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. It's been great. We really appreciated, having you
Thanks
on
for
today.
having me. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
really
you're
very
great.
grateful.
And I
Yeah.
just wanna reiterate that Cindy, Trey, they're great people, they're doing great work. I've been there, I've seen it. I haven't just seen the beautiful house, but I've seen how they operate, and it's an amazing place, so I can't recommend it enough.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Aw
Have a great rest of your day. Great
You too, have
weekend.
a great weekend. All right.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah. Bye.
If you liked what you heard today or just wanna know more, Give us a call on 919-670-8119 or visit us at newwatersrecovery.com. Thank you.